And away we go.
Okay, and topic number 2, this would be episode 26, part 2. Don Lemon and Georgia Fort, who were not arrested for being protesters, because they weren't. They were arrested for reporting on the protesters who interrupted a church, and I use big giant freaking quotes on that, a church service, which was being protested because the minister of said church was supposedly an ICE enforcement agent himself.
Right. So they interrupted a KKK ICE rally.
Essentially. But what's particularly disturbing is I am not attacking the protesters. Don't get me wrong. But what Don and Georgia did, though, was simply report on what was happening, and they were arrested for reporting what was happening. So that's the irony is that they were arrested, quote unquote, for violating somebody else's free speech, when in truth their free speech was being violated by putting them in jail for reporting on this stuff. Now, if they just said, "Hey, we're kicking you out," that I don't know, but they actually put them in jail for filming this.
Once again, this is just a classic example, and of the state of affairs here in the United States, this fascism we're living under. So Don Lemon, right? I was watching the news with my girlfriend, and this is, I don't remember how long ago. I mean, time is weird. So we're watching it, and Don Lemon tees off on Viviswamy, I think his name was. He was running, and he was saying the most ridiculous, putting out some felonious stats or something, saying some ridiculous nonsense, right? And the interviewer, I can't remember which one it was, and Don Lemon was sitting next to them, and she started asking questions like, "Wait a minute, blah, blah, blah." And then, he kept coming back with these bullshit answers and responses. And then finally Don Lemon clicked in, right? And then she just stepped back and let him go. And he said, "What do you know about the black man in America just because you're Indian?" And then he went on and on and on. And he went in and he railed into him for about a good, 2-3 minutes, if I remember correctly, maybe longer. Maybe it wasn't that long. I just remember looking over and saying to my girlfriend, "He's going to get fired for that." And it wasn't a couple of days later, he was fired. So I witnessed it live, right? Because he was already, I think, on thin ice over there for speaking the truth and for not allowing these people to tell lies. And that's what the guy was doing. He was now, okay, so if what he was saying wasn't a factual lie, it was a misrepresentation and not explained properly. And we talked about how data doesn't tell the story.
It never
like,
actually.
The data speaks for itself.
Data on its own.
Right, so you could say, well, the vast majority of people in jail are black, and make that out to be are you saying they're more violent by nature, or are you saying there's something?
What are you saying by that?
Right, because on my side, I say it's because of systemic racism. Right. Like, you prove the point of systemic racism right there, or you're proving the point that you're a fucking racist. Which point are you proving, asshole?
Yeah.
Like, you're proving the point you're a fucking racist bigot. And these guys, these fucking, Cash Patel, all these fuckers, right? Patel, they think if they get in proximity of this power, that they're going to somehow be like these guys. They strive to be like, as evil. And it's like, dude, you're never going to be one of these guys. Watch the movie One Battle After Another. Fucking see what I'm talking about. Have you seen it yet?
I haven't seen it yet. No.
At the end, the reverse rape scene is fucking hilarious. Anyways, you're never gonna be one of these guys. So if you're a woman or a minority and you see this and you fucking buy into this bullshit, you're the dumbest motherfucker, useful idiot ever lived. You're a fucking traitor, and your brain has been colonized. So, anyways, yeah, so so then he goes and he has his own thing going on now, right?
Yeah.
He's on TikTok and he's got this stuff and he's got his podcast and what else?
He's probably on YouTube
and what's that other one that's out now that's pretty popular that was started by oh god, what was that? The Middle Eastern guy who's a reporter who's always out there.
Oh,
he's the one who did. I'm horrible with names.
Midas Touch.
No, different. He does start with an M though. So, anyways, there's that guy. He started a news organization too, or a website too, and there's a lot of people on that. He's involved with a bunch of other people who got that started, but there's a lot of stuff out there, right? to get away from this mainstream news, which is all compromised at this point. I give it to CNN, even though in this recent last shooting, and even Fox had some people on there saying shit like, that wasn't right. He had the second man right. They went too far. Why? Because they killed a white guy. Yeah, they killed a white man with a beard who carried a gun. Like, hey, that could be me. And when it's somebody else, fucking, who cares? Now all of a sudden, whoa, what are you talking about here? What the fuck are you talking about here? You mean I can't show up somewhere with a gun anymore? I'm gonna get a bullet to the back of the head.
It wasn't good enough that they arrested a 5-year-old kid.
Right, no, because the kid was Mexican.
And then a 4-year-old kid after that.
Yeah, because they were Mexican. Right. And their parents were evil.
But the kid was a citizen. I mean, what the hell?
Right, no, but they
literally used him as bait to drag out the parents.
Somebody said it perfectly. Like, we are in the mass men in the streets abducting and kidnapping people and arresting journalists level of fascism at this point.
Oh, and then what's just pathetic is when they got on and they're like, oh, you guys won't let us eat in any restaurants or get any sleep in the hotels. Yeah, because you want to kidnap everybody that's working in the hotels and working in the restaurants. What the fuck is wrong with you?
You dumb idiot.
Like, of course not.
We're just serving warrants. No, you're not. You're getting bonuses for bringing in as many people as you can.
I mean, and I don't know if I mentioned it on this video, but I was watching a video of this one white woman who was abducted, and one of the points that stood out to me was that when they took her to a section of the ICE unit or whatever that was actually had a plaque up showing that it was for U.S. citizens, right. not for immigrants, but they were expecting to detain people they knew were U.S. citizens.
Right. I mean, we could go on and on about this ICE thing too. That was kind of the last segment. I'm going to say one more thing, and then we'll try to get back to this
Sorry.
Don Lemon thing and wrap it up. But look, if they wanted to go after people that were violent criminals with a warrant, I am sure that any city, I guarantee you, would facilitate that and be like, oh, okay, we'll go with our police and we'll help you arrest this guy that you have a specific warrant, who is a criminal that you can prove has this warrant out for them. But that's not what they're doing. That is not what they are doing for the most part. Do they have a couple warrants that they're servicing?
Here and there, sure.
Yeah, sure they are. I'm not saying they're not, but that's not what they're doing. That's not what they're doing. Now back to Don Lemon. I just want to get into the guy who ran this church, and this, like, look, what has Christianity, like, has it ever been anything else but this? I mean, I don't know, in the United States, but this Puritan, look, these guys were so bad in Europe that they came to America because they basically got booted out for being such tyrannical assholes. The Puritans who came over here in the Mayflower and shit. So that we started with these motherfuckers, right? And that's why some of these guys, when they wrote the Constitution, I'm not a big fan of it. I'm not one of these constitutionalists, believe me, but, a lot of that shit needs to be tossed. But, they said separate this church and state shit, because even the guys on top didn't want that shit. They didn't want.
They were like, it's bad for the churches as it is for the state.
We still want our feudal system where we're on the top, but fuck the church. These people are nuts. So a lot of them were that way, So this idea that somehow that they were, like, but these people existed in society, and they were they were terrorizing people all over the fucking place, and to this day, So we got to contend with this bullshit, and if you, and I'm going to take it from this way, right? If you were to follow Jesus and throughout the Old Testament, like the early Christians did, and you were a socialist like Jesus was, and you were he was, if this character that is written about, fictitious or real,
the way that he's written, regardless of whether you take him as real or not,
Paul, 40 years later, whatever the fuck that was. Look that shit up, Dan McClellan or whatever. He'll tell you the real story. I'm just, I've read a lot about it. I just know it was years later, decades later, and they wrote some shit about this guy who allegedly existed, and then, there might have been guys like him. And it might have even been one guy like him. Who knows? But he was a political rebel rouser who was against the church and state, period. Like anybody today. So he would have been Antifa today.
You can't read it any other way.
You can't read it
really
any other
can't.
way. He was talking about how it's so abusive, how the system is so abusive, how we need to be more inclusive, how we need to help and defend each other, how we need to be better to each other, do unto others, and that the political system was violent and abusive, and so was the religious system of the time, and they were heretics to any form of higher power, of a higher being, of higher existence. And Jesus was actually more about internal self, like about God being from within, than being some kind of hierarchy, right? So it's actually the antithesis to the old system. At one point, he even said something like, "This is a new era,
New covenant or something.
right?
Yeah.
The old thing has passed away." The introduction of the Old Testament. I'm going off here again, but the introduction, because I just want to get into this guy who's preaching bullshit. The introduction of the New Testament and the culmination of the canon of the Bibles wasn't put together 300 years later, and they got rid of all the stuff they didn't like from the early Christians. And then they adopted the Old Testament, which was never adopted by the early Christians. So just to have these hierarchies and patriarchies continue that they wanted. And they contradict each other so many ways, in a lot of ways. And so does the Old Testament contradict, and itself contradict in itself. So the whole thing is just a big mess, At any rate, so here's this guy. Now this guy's taking the extreme example of this. Now they've warped this whole thing into white nationalism, and this is divine, and that, it was, the divine right of kings. And then in America, it was, they called it
Manifest destiny.
Manifest destiny, this divinity, this divine right of us to do what we did here. So, he's preaching this shit. Now, what would have Jesus done in his time? He would have went in there and kicked over the fucking tables like he did 2 days before he got executed. Like, I would like to make a shirt, right? And it has Jesus on a cross, and it says, "Comply or die."
I'm sure people can help you with that. We can probably get somebody that'll do that.
If you want to make a T-shirt that says "Comply or die" and have Jesus on the cross, do me a favor, make that T-shirt, because that's basically what's fucking going on here. So yeah, that's so for this guy to go in there and just basically film these guys. Now, what is he for this? Yeah, probably. I'm sure Don Lemon is knows that this guy is up there talking bullshit. And,
Oh yeah, no, he didn't go in there cold. I mean,
he's
had a
hiding
clue.
behind a pulpit to be a racist bully. Period. So, do you mean if I call myself a fucking religion and establish myself as a religion, I can do and say whatever the fuck I want and I'm not up for scrutiny? If my doors are open to the public? Get the fuck out of here. The whole thing is bullshit. Do you want to say anything before?
No, you pretty much summarized it.
Yeah,
I mean, I'd just be repeating myself if I tried to say
I'm going to repeat myself again. Once again, fuck these people. They're full of shit and they always reverse everything.